the whole idea of participatory budgeting in the first place is a political initiative. It is a very useful political tool which also impacts on institutional development. So the essence of tool development is one, to recognize the broader context in which participatory budgeting is taking place. Because quite often, since it deals with issues of finance, there may be a danger of linking it up with improvement in efficiencies, improvement in allocation. So the underlying point is, when you're making a tool, you have to take it into the broader context of the tool. That's one thing. But two, the whole process of tool development is a process that involves a number of stakeholders, a number of actors. One, it needs scholars, academics, who are involved with the concepts, with the normative aspects, with the knowledge. It involves also practitioners, people who are on the ground, who have been engaging into this. It involves the actual stakeholders who are impacted by the facility, by the innovation. But then it involves the technical people who bring these elements together. So it's a team work, as it were. It collects experiences in terms of a team, indeed. And then, of course, it involves resources. We need resources for the development of tools. But then, since the process of participatory budgeting is a total process, we have to be very strategic in identifying the kind of tool or tools that are necessary to complete the whole process. Because participatory budgeting is not one element, one action. It involves mobilization, as I said. It involves awareness creating. It involves developing models where it has worked. It involves doing analysis. So the selection of areas of intervention has to be very rigorous on that aspect. Then bringing this team together, financing it, getting the right people to develop the tools, having cities that are willing to test the tools. In the end, the testing of the tool is critical so that you can get feedback on the viability of that tool. And finally, going through the whole rolling out of the tool so that it is utilized. Our experience has shown that you need at least a year for the whole process of development of tool, from the beginning of getting the normative and policy implications of it, to getting actually the whole technical product that has been tested and its viability considered to be very positive. But then, of course, tool development is a critical component in this whole process. And it needs to be linked up with the aspect of capacity building. Because once you have developed the tool then has to reach out to generate outcome and impact. There has been a tendency quite often for us to develop a booklet or to develop a CD and then to leave it in the shelf. There is a whole process now after you have developed the tool. Oftentimes you develop the tool in one language, so you have to make sure that it is in various languages. You have to make sure you have a strategy of dissemination. You have to have a strategy of capacity building or training and skill development out of that tool. So the process of tool making has got its upstream and downstream component, which take time, and it needs to be well designed for the tool to reach out, because there are a number of tools which are still lying in the shelves right now, which have not reached their intended beneficiaries.
Perfect. And do you think that decentralized cooperation in this moment could be a useful double-track learning between the North and the South, and especially in the moments of crisis in which everybody is giving less to the others, but everybody needs to demystify, for example, the financial question in front of its own citizens?
Definitely, these 2 days that I've been here in Lisbon, attending this particular meeting, that has brought in experiences from Latin America. We have tried to bring in experiences from Africa, and we have been hearing a lot about experiences from Portugal and Spain and other countries in the West, has shown that it is important to get knowledge from the ground. Quite often, the knowledge has been distilled, synthesized into very sophisticated medium, But when this knowledge and experience is conveyed by actors on the ground and sharing it among actors themselves in that process of decentralized cooperation, it becomes more effective. First, it generates a dialogue between them. They probe the question. And in the end, the total knowledge that appears becomes more elevated, of a higher quality than that knowledge that had started, or when it is completely passive in terms of CDs and in terms of newsletters. Indeed, a decentralized cooperation, when it is operationalized effectively through study tours, through creating linkages between them, through exchanging of information, through having joint sessions of learning, facilitated by other backstoppers, institutions and actors, so that this knowledge is distilled, this knowledge is made to be more relevant, is the most effective tool right now. Again, in these last 2 days, it has been demonstrated that quite often, most of these innovations were considered to be innovations of developing countries. Oftentimes, interventions were addressed to Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But increasingly, especially with this global crisis, a crisis that was triggered almost from the bottom, the way in which the bottom was handled, the way in which housing mortgage, a house was handled, shows that most of the dynamics of how you allocate resources, how you mobilize resources, how you manage resources, first have a macroeconomic impact, even when they trigger from the bottom. But more so, they also show that some of those crises, development challenges experienced by developing countries have manifested themselves in a slightly different way, even in other northern countries. The fiscal crisis is a crisis now which is affecting the local level. It's affecting the household. It's affecting the individual. The crisis in demography, the demands of social services with the aging populations, with the unemployment, with the youth, is affecting the local level. And this is a challenge of the Western developed countries. The issues of immigration, transnational migration, and the way in which you can foster inclusiveness. These are issues, challenges faced by local authorities on the ground, as it were. The issues of the budget and the fiscal crisis at the national and local level. Now, all these are issues relating to how are we handling resources? How are we mobilizing resources? How are we deploying these resources? How are we allocating them to the citizens, as it were? These are the same challenges in developing countries. They are the challenges in the developed countries. So this exchange of experiences and knowledge is very critical, especially in this world now when we have new mediums, mediums that can facilitate rapid exchange, almost on-time exchanges, and these need to be fostered, as it were.
Thank you very much.